Wonderful. So that worked. Hello. Wow, so many people. Very cool. I would like to start with a little game. You probably know that in some computer games you have the status bar on top of the head of the characters to kind of help visualize the situation. And a fun game that I've learned is that you can actually do that with your hand. So how much did you enjoy the previous sessions? This is like, I'm so boring. I wish I didn't come. This was like, it's really interesting. So let's show, and you can look around you and see what the others are thinking. Cool. How excited are you about the future of blockchain? So we'll soon go to the moon. It's gonna happen, or it's just an pipe dream. Now if you think about the future in the context of the climate crisis, which is a topic that's really interesting to me, this is like, it's no problem, 20 years we're going to laugh about it, and we're never going to make it. I just hope that I get my Lamborghini before everything collapses. So, to think about solutions, this is like, the economic system just needs to change, that's everything. Or, no problem, everything will work with different technology, or maybe somewhere in the middle, a little bit of both. So I think it's pretty clear that the current way of life is unsustainable, and the big question is what kind of system do we need to solve these problems. And on my search for these answers, I came upon Holochain, which is basically a framework for peer-to-peer applications that's inspired by natural systems like the human body or the forest. So, to start, how it works, at the core of each application are the rules. We call them a DNA, similar to kind of each cell has its DNA, but it works independently in the body. There's no kind of master cell that controls all other cells. So, let's take a Twitter application ported to Holochain, how that would work. So I'm going to use the phrase HAP a lot. That's basically just short for Holochain application. So we have the rules that each tweet cannot be longer than 140 characters, and we have a kind of a soft rule that no violence might be shown, or that it must not be violent to others. And we have a redundancy level of 5. I'm going to get to that later. So with Holochain applications, it's really the case that the rules can be adapted to the specific needs of your app. So Twitter is really simple, but in case of a currency or a voting application, that will be very different, like very complicated and complex. You can easily think of an app like a smart contract. Now, Holochain is agent-centric. That means that you as a user are really in the center, and you are in control of your data, of your devices. I mean, on top, you're in control of what you put there, but once it's there, you're not really in control anymore. With Holochain, it's a bit different. So, each device that you use, you install your application there, and each device has its own perspective and the content which it stores on its local chain. And now when we publish a post, we first sign it with a digital fingerprint. That's kind of stuff that happens in blockchain as well, with the private key. And then you save it to your local chain and publish it to the peer-to-peer network of this individual app. So here we have the redundancy level of 5. That means we send each post to 5 other participants. That's chosen by how close the address of each post is to the address of the participants. Then each participant checks if the rules were followed and if the word is signed to post and store it on their local device. That also means that if I go offline, people will still be able to read my post. And if one of the other 5 agents goes offline, we just replace him with another one so that there is always 5 copies. And because I know the address of my post and it's also linked with other posts or with my person, that means I'm also always able to find where my post is stored inside the network. A really interesting feature of that is that if the system breaks in half, either disaster or whatever, they still function independently. And once you reconnect them, they grow back together. So it doesn't fork itself off and then you have, I don't know, a mess. So that's really useful in case of disaster, if you have kind of an island that is cut off from the internet or a city, or once you grow into a multiplanetary species, and communication between Earth and Mars, I think it takes around 8 minutes, which is too long to really kind of locally do something useful. So now, an important question is what happens if someone tries to cheat? And the answer is quite simple. Everyone holds a copy of the rules, and everyone can check his content, and he actually signed his own post, so we know he's like a bad one. Don't trust him. And what happens in the body, also as well, in the immune system, is that we see a kind of bad germ, that white blood cell comes and alerts others and then responds. And what I forgot is that everyone can really check if someone is a bad actor and check for themselves. So each app is defined by its DNA and the rules, and that then creates its own independent and invisible network. And in order to join and interact with other participants on the network, you need to actually have the exact same code. That makes some interesting possibilities of a membrane, we call it. So you can design your app in a way that you can control who can join and see the network. So it can be public, it can be invite only, it could be private, and even with some really additional entry validation. For example, if we have a Swiss voting app, you would need a passport to actually be able to register and also enter the network. So now it gets really fascinating because apps are really easy to interoperate and build bridges between different apps. And in this case, agent-centric also means that each user can build their own bridges between apps. So this allows for some really interesting personalization for everyone. So the way that happens is that the interface is really its own layer, and you can there on the interface layer combine and bridge different applications. And so we would rather build specific functions as a app and then reuse them on different use cases. So you could build with the same parts, you could build a Facebook application or a Twitter, and that would still work the way you're used to. But it would be much less work to, So it's really useful and it can be highly personalized. So that kind of introduces the theory of evolution into the digital space, because every useful app will survive, and that means that the systems evolve from really simple to much more complex ecosystems. Holochain is also designed to be an unenclosable carrier. That means it's, by its nature, censorship resistant network. There is no central off switch as well. So an application really works whenever someone is using it. And a network is built as long as two parts are somehow connected. So that could be the internet, or it could be a Bluetooth connection, or anything pretty much. So it's really the decentralized and distributed kind of system I think we're looking for. So one of the first applications that the team behind Holochain is building is an optional distributed hosting network. So you can use these fancy-looking devices called holoports, or your own device with the software, and build pretty much a bridge between the old browser-based internet to a more self-hosted peer-to-peer apps. So here you can see you have your own devices, and you render the service, kind of the hosting, and then you can earn Holofuel, which is a cryptocurrency. It's a bit different than normal tokens, but I can't really go into detail in just 10 minutes. Maybe afterwards, if you're interested, I can share more about that. Yeah, so users who can't or won't install an app, they can just use the browser, type in the web address to apps that are hosted, and the hosts will earn Holofuel, which is paid for by app providers. That's pretty much the same as we're used to today. Those who create the apps and want to host them, or create a website, want to host them, they need to pay the hosts. So what's really interesting with this architecture is that apps are pretty much infinitely scalable, because transactions happen in parallel, and because each network is separate and independent. That means that there really are no bottlenecks, unless you introduce them, of course. And in terms of use cases, it can be really high security requirements, as cryptocurrencies, as an example, all the way to really low security, like a chat app. With security, I don't mean that it will be compromising privacy, but more kind of the validation rules. Which also has the benefit that less security means more speed and more capacity overall. Then you can also reach from simple to-do applications to really highly complex tool sets that could run a whole business, countries, or even the planet. And we heard a lot about AI, so I think one really interesting use case would be to have personalized AI that works for you instead of like you can really design what kind of work do you want AI to do for you personally. So anything is possible, really. The goal of the Holochain founders is to foster collective intelligence. They want to do that by showing the flows of life and aligning basically the economies with the living systems. So that instead of what we have now, that the economy rises and the ecology or ecosystem falls because of that both can rise together. So in the beginning I introduced the kind of status bar question, which is really an interesting way to make the invisible visible in a way that Holochain is trying to build a foundation for that. So I really invite you to join me and us on a journey deep down into the rabbit hole to explore the possibilities of the future beyond sustainability and money as we know it today. Thank you very much.
this was a really high-level philosophical tickling that you offered us here, and we definitely understand that in this short time you can't really deep dive, but I hope that we have a lot of questions that will offer you the opportunity to tell us more about this. So, thank you so much. So maybe you should stay, and I'll invite our other speakers up stage so we can. I just want to give the opportunity to Rafi to answer any questions from the audience, because it is getting quite late, and I just want to make sure that we have that opportunity. So if there's any questions around the Holochain development and the community, I'd like to take those questions now. Yeah. You want to come in front or stand up loud?
Yeah, I will stay here. I have a question. Is it possible to build a DAO on the Holochain? Is it also possible, like, the Zurich blockchain, to make our own token system and our own host system?
Many things are possible. So ideally, you don't need to build a token on Holochain. So what Holochain is doing is they're building a mutual credit currency, which is closer to what the banking system is doing. But I think there are certainly ways you can build tokens, you can build currencies, you can build a DAO probably as well. So yeah, probably I'm not too familiar with or didn't dive too deep into DAOs myself. So I think, but if I understand it correctly, then Holochain is actually quite ideal for that sort of organization.
Is there already a framework where you can use it or build it up?
So right now you can actually start building Holochain apps. The bottleneck with development right now is the networking layer, so it only works on a local network and not yet on the global network. They are working really hard at the moment to implement that. In general, you can start building and familiarizing yourself with, because agent-centric development is quite different than traditional or blockchain what you're doing. So you need to take in a lot of different angles. It's a bit of a new way of thinking, really.
Okay, thank you very, very much. Thank you to the audience too, and to the companies that have organized this event. And please recall the speakers one last time.